know Amy.
She called me earlier.
She probably feeding the meter. No,
What?
feeding the meter.
Nick, with a shirt like that, I'm going to let you lead us in the pledge, and I'm going to let Chuck, are you up to gracing the meeting?
My Lord and Savior, you
All right, folks. We're not? Okay.
I think Shelley's the one that's checking it on her end.
Showing live an excellent connection and.
Go ahead and just click back on the one that you turned off, so we'll see if that goes.
No, it's not sure.
So do we need to go into settings and see it? Chuck, what did we do last time?
Sheila, you're good.
Say again?
What did we
She
do?
says we're good.
We're good? All right.
Okay.
All right, folks, welcome to this May 25th, 2021 special meeting of the Owen County Council. Amy is going to be here. I think she just ran a little bit late, but in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and get the preliminary stuff out of the way. And at this time, Nick's going to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, as we meet once again to conduct county business, we ask for thy guidance, thy wisdom, thy knowledge. Give us the desire to serve the people of Owen County. As it says in Judges, Leviticus, Numbers, that we are the leaders, and as leaders we must consider your people. We ask that you bless this meeting. We ask that you bless the residents of Owen County, and we do this in your Son's most holy and precious name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, so before we begin here, I want to talk about somebody. As most of you know, we have had some huge investigations and crimes that have been dealt with over the past few years. And Eric Touton, as our detective, replacing Bill Snodgrass, and well, you worked with Bill, but the bottom line is he just did a phenomenal job for this county, and he retires from our police force at the end of this month. And I just want to take an opportunity for us all to thank Eric for what he's done for countless citizens of this county, and for the rest of the government here. You know, I've never heard a complaint about the guy. He's just done a great job. And so, Eric, thank you so very much.
I thought you said Bill retired.
Well, Bill, yeah.
You retired as well?
I am.
Oh man, we're in trouble now. We're gonna miss you, brother.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So, at this time, again, I expect Amy any moment, but we're going to go ahead and roll into, by the way, if you haven't signed in, please do so. Jim's going to give us an update on some financial budget issues that we're gonna go through. And Tim, are you ready?
Good evening, Council. With your permission, if this would be acceptable, I'd like to just go over, and I'll try and keep it within 10 minutes, but just a general outline, general topics. Then I'm sure you'll want to dwell into these individually. I'll give a few examples. So basically, what I was asked to do since the last meeting was to take a look at the different funds, fund items, revenues, expenditures, and did that. So a few things that I'm going to reference. One is, this is a monthly financial fund and ledger report. This is what we consider the big picture. It has all of the funds in Owen County. As of today's date, at least as of this morning on May 25th, the balance in the general fund, the 1,000 general fund, the negative balance is $1,953,779.04. So tonight is one of the main things is going to take a look at that fund and what can be done. Now, when I said that this was the big picture in here, this file here is about 700 pages. This is the items on the expenditure. Every item makes up this. So if reviewing this, there would be a budget. For those that are in the general budget, there would be a specific location, auditor, treasurer. In here, it has all of the expenditures. This is from January 1st to May 7th. This can give you the exact detail of the spending, expenditures, appropriation. This makes up this fund. Then there's additional files. So starting off there is the county council as the fiscal body. In looking at this on how you as the council wants to address this, I have about 15 different topics. Just go there and then we'll move on. One is in 2022. In 2022, the options, which road, which path the county council would like to go. There is a path of just a general tax increase. I'm talking about just in generic terms, not a particular one, just what we're going to get use of a tax increase to reduce the deficit and the cost in 2022. There's an option of a tax increase for the new jail only. That would be the specific tax. As you recall, we'll detail a little bit later, that the beginnings of the new jail project have been done. There was a tax, but every single one of the consultants, construction, everyone that spoke, had indicated in order to fund properly the full jail, there would have to be a second tax. Option 3 is a budget cut only, just budget cuts. You're just looking at it in 2022, looking at what can be cut, what appropriations, what services, what departments that you would want to look at. The number is in general about 20% in total. The other number I would put in there is somewhere in the range of about $2 million. I'll explain that, where that number came from. Number 4 would be a personnel cut. There's an option. Are you looking at the possibility, when we talk about personnel cut, that there's 2 general areas of that? One is a hiring freeze that was already passed, or 2, would there be, in addition to a hiring freeze, would you be considering actual layoffs? It's just options. And then 5 is just a combination of which path, which way you go. Why that's important is what direction the county council wants would lead everyone working on this project what to concentrate on. Are you looking at increasing revenue? Is it cost? Is it personnel? But that general direction would be needed. Now, that is the option for 2022. For 2021, there is no possibility of a tax increase. That will not happen. It is not possible at this period of time to actually increase taxes where any revenue would come to 21. Your options then for addressing basically, I know it's put in the manual, let's just say from June 1st to December 31st, is an area of the budget cuts, personnel cuts, or combination. The spending, as it would be, just for an example, the appropriation in the general fund alone was $6.7 million. That's the appropriation of the approved budget. As of May 13th, the expenditure already this year was almost $3 billion. It was $2.9 million. Multiply that by 3 for the quarters, that would indicate the current spending pattern would be in the range of $8.6 million on a 6.7 appropriated budget. That is not feasible. That is not possible. In the past, there have been cash reserves. There are still cash reserves in here, but at this particular time, I mean, the duty of everyone coming is just a point. These would be the indicators of what the spending would be, the necessary of the cuts. So, in looking at your discussion, I would ask that you keep three dates in mind. June 1st, as far as what is the importance of June 1st, it's my opinion that appropriations transfers must be advertised, must be given enough time for you to consider your next meeting. So any department that wants to make a transfer, appropriation, looking at their line, would need to get those to the auditor by that date so they can be properly advertised and properly considered by the county council. I'm going to make a huge assumption, but I would anticipate there will be a number of those ready. The second date would then be the June 14th meeting. I think respectfully that would be a critical meeting for the county council on looking at exactly the strategic plan, the movements that you want to make on that particular night, what type of funding that you want to cut, what type of funding that you want to look at. And then June 30th, this is purely an arbitrary day, but I would suggest that by June 30th that this plan be ready to go. And it's my understanding, June 30th is also an important date. State Board of Accounts, Department of Local Government Finance as a date of looking at financial health of counties. So the 1st, the 14th, and the 30th I would see as key dates. The number one priority, even though there's probably going to be, I'll probably repeat myself and say, well, here's another priority. The number one priority that I respectfully would ask everyone to consider is clarity in measurement. In looking at what's been entered, it needs to be clear. It needs to be more precise for you as the county council in making decisions. So if I could, just a few anecdotal examples. For example, in the general fund, there's locations, a department. There's a location in the general fund that's 000, no department. There's no such thing as no department. You have in there a sheriff's vehicle rotation, you have different accounts in there, to the point that those appropriations can come out, but they've got to be looked at. There's also in the 000 location, some actual expenditures being put. I'll give those details later. That doesn't work. You have group insurance. Group insurance for everyone that is looking at their own budget, $39,000. The amount of the insurance is approximately $1 million. It's a little bit more than that, but $1 million. In the budget, it's budgeted for $895,000. There are 12 locations for the group insurance. In this system, there are 22 locations where there's either an appropriation or expenditure. There are 9 places where there's being expenditures for group insurance where there is no appropriation. I just say this as far as the clarity. When you're trying to make these very difficult or hard decisions, you've got to have the numbers, because what I'm saying here, in location 068, $223,000 of group insurance has been expended from that location. That's not appropriation, whether it should be added, whether it should be somewhere else, but there's $250,000 that needs to come out that would immediately reduce your deficit in the general fund by $250,000. That's what I'm saying as far as the absolute crystal clarity in here. In these areas, there needs to be an appropriation for every line item. Most of that has been done, but it is not 100%. And this is an opinion, purely my opinion. But council, when you set an appropriation, I would respectfully ask someone to understand that. That's not a suggestion. That's the total amount of money that is allowed to be spent. If you ask me to look at details in one of the other reports, there's over $400,000 from January 1st to May 7th that's been spent over the appropriated amount, $400,000. That's not allowed. Now, please ask him, I'm not going here and say, no one stole the money, no one did, nothing like that. It's just that you're setting a budget. You say to this person, you may spend $10,000. That's it. It's not 12, it's not 15, it's not 18,000.
On that, look, as far as internal controls go, you know, how are we spending $400,000 beyond what we've appropriated, and the claims are still going through?
Some of them are entered twice, as Jim had said, like the 120,000s and those things, when those come out, that will reduce it. The others are, again, I'm not sure where the 400,000 is coming from. It would have to be looked at. Is it in payroll? Is it in what we're doing? Is that many people already spent that much, this much or far in the year? Because sometimes contracts are due at the first of the year, or they quarterly, or there are things that won't be spent until the end of the year. Is that?
There's a variety, and most of these can be fixed. So like just talking this general, like here, there's $223,000 in the insurance, in liability insurance. The appropriated value is $158,000. The insurance bill is $309,000 over the appropriation. Then the other thing that has to be done now with liability insurance is right now it's all out of the general. It's out of the general. But there are other areas that are non-general funds that now that needs to be broken down. That's it. Here is the insurance. Here is highway. Here is EMS. Here is your share. That has to be broken down. There were $204,942 in appropriated categories. The amount of money that was actually spent was $691,922. The reason I say that, all this can be fixed, and it may lead to good news in that, if it's $400,000 in its bookkeeping that we can correct here, you don't have to have a tax increase, you don't have to lay off. So this is why I stress at the very beginning, priority one must be clarity and measurement. It would be impossible, council, and I mean this not in a derogatory way, cumulative, without the proper information, without the proper measurement, it would be very difficult to make these decisions. But there is time between now and June 30th to get these in the proper areas. Has it been overspent? It's just in the wrong category. Now, in that, talking about proper measurement, for all the departments looking at, this is very basic and very general, but you have funds for, if you're in the 1,000, treasurer, auditor, clerk, recorder, you're out of the general fund, so you have a budget. That budget then says $500 in supplies, $800 in training. So a person could say, I'm good, that's how much I have in my budget. The answer is yes, but the answer is also no. Now I'm going into kind of my opinion. The budget right now that you're basing on it is 1.9 million in the red. So before any expenditure is done, please keep that in mind. Even though you would have in contract services $15,000 and it's in your budget, if you haven't spent it, this might be the time to really look before it's just spent. But the general funds are based upon here with the idea that this amount exists. What I would ask them to do, if they haven't, and many already have, many of them have been doing this all week, and I know Councilman Knapp, Councilman Robinson, probably everyone else has been involved in the departments. Please go through your exact budget. Make sure that your items, this is the budget, adopted budget, and this will have the actual amounts that are supposed to be in there. You would want to verify that you have the adopted budget amounts in your LAO system. you want to look and make sure that you have an appropriation in every one of those categories. In addition, then this goes very rarely, but some of these, as far as just the topic, so this highway, the topic was per diem. No one knew what that meant, but the highway did. It just should have been the emergency overtime. So if you even have a topic, a header, this would be the time to correct all that. If you don't have an appropriation in an account, the reality is you're not supposed to spend out of that. You will find that that exists. There's an account that you thought you had in, so that has to be looked at. There are other funding. This would be primarily those outside of the general. Highway, EMS, building, those have other sources of revenue, 911. They have two jobs on those accounts. One, they have their appropriation, correct. So I'm gonna use the highway, for example. Highway had an appropriation roughly in one of the accounts of $2.7 million. They do not have $2.7 million in cash. They have revenue streams. So the highway, the EMS, the building has to balance their budget on revenue streams. That's why there were some accounts that were in the red. It's purely revenue. What you find in, especially like with the 911 dispatch, there's a 24,000 revenue stream in one, there's 35,000 revenue stream in the other account. The more expensive amount of the budget was in the 24. The less expensive was in the 35. Just flip them over, your revenue stream, both will be out of the red. These are the type of things, but the other funded, the cash revenue stream that you have, and your appropriated budget. Grants. We have a whole series of grants. You have a number of these grants that are in the red. I know that on one hand that they can be because they come later, I get that. I would suggest, or respectfully submit, that any grant that comes and it's accepted should have a budget with it, should have an appropriation. And here, that way you can measure, you can check, you can do all of these type of things. Now, negative funds. In April of 2021, there were 15 funds, roughly about $2.7 million in the negative balance. 3 have already been taken care of. Three have already back with positive. You got 12. You have definitely fixable amounts in 1222, 417, 4914, and 7331. Those can all be fixed. It's revenue streams, counting error, that and not 4 of those out, which is a good thing. You'll be set by July 1st on those. Grant funds, whoever's running the different grants, are there. 8903, 8904, 9118, 9130, 9159. Those have been consistently in black. Just need to make, the red, I apologize for the red. Got to make sure that those are coordinated. You, county council, have 3 problematic accounts. Your fund 1,000 general fund is $1.9 million in the red. That is priority 1B. Priority 1B is the general fund. You have a payroll clearing fund 5100 that's in the red for about $500,000, and you have a community crossings grant of 9051 in the red of approximately 448,000. All 3 of those need to be addressed. But there's being a review on 9051, that could be clerical, that can be looked at. 51 payroll, it's just gonna have to wait. It's just gonna have to be one of those you get to, but clearly addressing the general fund has to be priority 1B. Now, there's a couple options as far as the settlement came in. I believe that if the number, if I'm reading my chart correctly here, the general is supposed to get approximately $1.7 million. That is from the June certificate of distribution. It's 1.9 in the red. 1.7 is what you need to take you through in this from the June all the way to the rest of the year. So the June settlement will not be enough to pay the balance and take you through the rest of the year. Lit edit is 7332 is a possibility of looking at that account. Lit-Edit at this point has, at least on the 7th, it had $1.3 million in Lit-Edit. It has an annual revenue, it has a monthly revenue of approximately $105,000 that comes in every month. You do have appropriations, so I just wanted, the reason I bring it up in this setting, it's not as easy as just taking 1.3 million and transfer to the general fund. It will not work that way. But this is a fund that could be something you take a look at. It's a possibility. You have Riverboat. Riverboat had approximately $300,000 and some $300,000 in debt. Those are the two. Your lit, please examine that one on 7332 as you start to make your decisions. You've got different things in there. You have contract services, you have group insurance, you have your loan payment for the storage units, and let's say this, I'll bring this up here now. 50,000 is unappropriated. Anytime you see a line item is 50,000 unappropriated, it's okay to use those sparingly. I would say as you're looking into your budgets, please take a look at the 50,000 unappropriated. There's too many items in there. This is where there's been no appropriation. This will take you over your budget. You've got to look at that. And like in Lit-Edit, there's 89,000 in the unappropriated category. There's zero money appropriated in there. There's been $89,000 spent. There's been contract services. There's an appropriation of 65,000 in Lit-Edit. There's been 74,000 spent, as of on May 7th. But it is one of your areas or one of your things to take a look at. Correctional facility, as far as the jail, there's a correctional facility that's already been passed. There's roughly $70,000 per month of revenue. The anticipated revenue is $840,000 for this year. That money was, in essence, the seed money for the new jail. By statute, you can use it for the maintenance of the current jail, and you can additionally use 20% for operating costs. So for your jailers, there is a possibility of using some of that facility. This is a trade-off. You're the county council. This is the thing to look at. Every dollar that's taken out of 1233 to maintain and to pay for correctional is not available for the seed money, but it is there. H is, there are a number of statutory funds. This fund shift. In your Crow report, they talked about that. Recorder's perpetuation fund, the defense funds, all these things. Those are not as simple as simply saying, we're gonna take this money and put it in there. There might be resolutions, there might need to be an ordinance, and in some cases, there has to be the consent of that department doing that. The department doesn't consent, the money cannot be moved. I would say there's some possibilities there, but this would not be, in my opinion, the avenue that is going to make the difference in the general fund. You have then different local funds, redevelopment. In your redevelopment, there's 3 different categories. There's approximately $1 billion. The one thing I would say in there, though, about it, just explain to somebody, so far I've not been able to locate the actual ordinances or the budgets out of those. That would be the first step on what legally those could be. But what I'm trying to say as a council, if you look on your fund ledger, you see all those redevelopments, they all add up to $1 million. You cannot just take those 3 and put them in the general. It does not work that way. Group insurance. Group insurance is very important. So I wanted to speak about that again. Part of getting the correct entries and everything there, you have the possibility of easily taking $223,000 that's out of the budget, put that in the proper one, you're gonna drop $250,000. The other funds, for example, you're looking at lit, there's $455,000 that is appropriated for it, only $87,000 has been spent. So this would just be, and when I reiterate that, over and over and over looking in there, you've got to take a look at the correct measurement. The other area as far as appropriation, if you look at the funds from January 1st to May 7th, in appropriated categories in the general fund alone, there's $400,000 in appropriations. $0 have been spent in that fund from January 1st to December 7th. I would suggest that this,
Can you clarify, because everybody's using the word appropriations incorrectly, I think. What you're speaking of is actual budgeted number, is that what you're actually saying?
yeah, this is the appropriated money that you have said
No,
can be
that's
spent.
budgeted. Appropriations are stuff that comes back so we can appropriate more money. So if we set the budget, you're talking about here, right, the budget line items that we set back.
That's an additional appropriation. Appropriation is purely your authority to spend the money. If an additional appropriation would be, I'm in the Treasury Department for supplies.
I get it.
You give me 500, additional appropriation is I come to you and say, I need 500 more. What I'm talking about is appropriations you have already established.
We just call it the budget.
The budget, you said so, the budget.
Well, I don't want, you understand that we're talking to the public here on camera.
Sure, but
If
say,
there is, I don't want any confusion. This is about a set budget we did last year.
set budget that you have, there's $400,000 that's not been touched.
Okay.
If you haven't used that from January to May, if you don't, there's at least a maximum of 400,000 to at least consider right there. I'm just saying, don't spend it, don't use it. That's a potential savings that you would have there. That would be correct.
Where was that, Sorry.
Those are everywhere. I've got the list in here, but it's in the general fund. This is every department in the general fund. You will find, I'm not talking about 25 spent or 30. You'll have the budgeted amount, 500. Expenditure is 0. There's over $400,000 in there of a budgeted amount, 0 expenditures.
Did you give that to us? Because I don't see that.
Don't have that one? I do have it, and I'll be sure you get it before we leave today. Yeah, I'll be sure you have that.
Thank you.
Can I clarify again on the 400,000 that's been spent that he talked about? The liability and the workman's comp, when that bill came in, it was $300 and some thousand dollars.
What's that?
And it was past due at the time, it was on March the 8th, and again, by the time that they got them. We took that amount out of the county general, or that's where we paid it from. But the same funds that he was talking about that are outside the levy, those amounts need to be put in there. So those monies will come from highway, EMS, health department, and building and them that aren't part of that. The reason in that we did it at the time to go ahead and get approved was so that, one, we could get the bill paid, and then you have to figure the exact amount that we're paying for workman's comp and liability for every single employee. When you get that exact dollar amount, then you take that exact dollar amount and you go to EMS and the highway and all of them, and if they have 30 employees times that amount, then that's the amount that I take out and transfer from that specific liability or workman's comp. The other thing is, remember, we inherited monies from the 2020 budgets that people, Sam inherited $156,000 in the red because he didn't get his additional appropriations. So all of those actions that were done, or everybody thought they had done on December the 18th, those have been inherited in everybody's budgets in January. So that's part of that deficit as well. On the insurance that Jim keeps talking about, getting it cleaned up and everything into the 3,900 or the 39,000 series, Lau is spending the entire day with us tomorrow going through and making sure that we have everything entered into the Lau system in the correct line items and the transfers, and they can do them. So I'm hoping that by the end of the day tomorrow that the insurance line items will be cleaned up, including bringing in the monies from those other funds to reimburse the county general fund.
As far as how we're paying for that out of your fund lines in your office, have we streamlined that thing enough to, that we're being absolutely as organized and efficient? I mean, clearly 22 different funds.
Right. And a lot of that, again, looking at it, is the highway. I believe they talked to Rachel today. March of 2020, it was being paid from that specific line item out there since March of 2020 last year. But when I entered the budgets that we got from DLGF this year, it put it into a different line item. So why it was being paid from where it was being paid before, I don't know. I just know that the 39,000, and these are preset series numbers that come from DLGF. Your 1,000 series is your payroll, your 2,000s are supplies, capital outlays, and those. So it's getting them back into the right line items and making sure that they're in the funds. And again, Jim asked everybody to look at their budgets, and if it's not being paid from the right line item, or you're not having something come out, please call, let us know. You know, we've heard from a few people this week, and it hasn't been right since January, and we're into May, so 5 months into trying to figure it out, and a lot of it is just putting it in the right line item number. So that part of it, I hope, again, to have the majority of that fixed tomorrow as far as the insurance ends of things go, which will change the bottom number. I will, as she gets done tomorrow and we're working with things, what we do, I can send out an updated email to everybody with the numbers as they're changing daily as we're going back and looking at these. And worked with the highway last week, changing some numbers and you know, like he said, the line item per diem is really their overtime, and that's just a matter of changing the name on the line item, which is allowed because it's still in that particular series. So it's okay to change names or regroup or redo the funds as long as they're in the same series. And it was something that was on the approved list to begin with from DLGF.
Okay, just continue, I'll bet 2 minutes will be all done. But on that, they're talking about the reduced, you know, the budget. Look, here's Department 000, it doesn't exist. It's a sheriff rotation vehicle for $120,000, training for $6,850, with insurance for $18,000. You can subtract that from your budget. That's $140,000 because no one, you've taken nothing from anyone. That's why I'm stressing going back there to the accounting part. That's $144,000. All it has to be is withdrawn. Then, in the area of your budget, you've made that reduction. And not laid off anyone, not increased the tax, not caused any.
Can you confirm the fund number and line item?
The fund number is 1,000, then it's all zeros, but then the numbers that are important, 31800, sheriff rotation vehicle, 1,000, 32900, training, 1,000, 39000, group insurance. But those type of things, you know, can be done. The auditor.
Do we need to take any official action on those right now?
I would.
Let's go ahead, and consider, taking action on those, said numbers. You got those?
So, okay, we got so many moving parts here. I think the best thing to do is do some low-hanging fruit and get it off the list. The first thing that I recommend we do is make sure our edit fund budget matches up with the numbers they're supposed to be, because there's only a few items in that budget anyway. One of them is the sheriff vehicle rotation. And I know on Jim's report, it shows nothing's appropriated, but on the budget sheet that we approved from last fall, we did appropriate it. So the first question is in Gateway, and this may be something Sheila needs to look up, is showing as an appropriation that we approved at the state level.
Yes, this is.
Okay.
This is the state budget, and the $120,000 is in,
The edit.
in the edit fund, the 7332 fund, it is in there.
Okay.
So that top amount can be zeroed out.
Okay.
And the group insurance one can be, because it won't be in the 1,000. The training one is actually, the JDAI's $6,850. So that will come out
Okay.
of the county general, but it'll go into the JDAI fund, which could already be there. We haven't got that far into looking. We just started going down Jim's list.
Okay, so back to the edit fund though, the sheet that we had from budget hearings,
Yes,
it totals $992,298.
yes,
Every line item and every dollar amount is correct at the state level.
yes.
Okay. So that being the case, I would recommend I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion that we proceed in, I guess, zeroing those 3 items that are in the report Sheila's mentioning, because they're already budgeted for elsewhere.
I'll second that.
Motion on the floor by Anton, seconded by Chuck. Proceed in zeroing out 3 accounts. And let's go ahead and run through those accounts. Group insurance,
Yeah, can we go ahead for the record then and make sure we specifically list those? They're all Fund 1000. And there were 3 of them. Jim, you mentioned the department was unappropriated.
There was 000 was your department.
000 was the department. And one of them was 120,000 for sheriff vehicle rotation. The second one then was for group health.
Health insurance.
Insurance.
How much was that?
445.
18,000,
18,000 even?
yes.
And then the other was for JDAI, but it was how was it labeled?
It's labeled as the general, but it's actually JDAI. But it needs to be removed from the 000 numbers,
Okay, and that was how much?
6850.
6850. Okay.
Do I have any further discussion?
Wait a minute, can you give me a total on that?
Yeah, I'm adding it up.
Thank you, sir.
That's $144,850.
Madam Auditor, you have others?
You have your new settlement numbers that have come in. I think that will give you a very good idea as far as target numbers, what real money you have to work with. Going in there rather than more base percent, and you would have those different departments. So,
Sir?
Sure.
Let me take a vote on this real quick. Is there anything that impacts the vote in what you're proceeding with?
No.
Okay. All right, do I have any further discussion from the council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of this action? 7-0.
I'd like to ask one question for you. What is the amount, Jim, that we are looking at to try to correct?
well, okay, it's a
I've
very,
heard several different numbers.
it's a very fair question. What you have, I would say that the 2 numbers that stand out the most right now are $2 million. On December 14th, there were expenditures made of $2 million that reduced the amount that was in the fund. Your general fund is in arrears right now of approximately $2 million, and the projected cost of over expenditure right now between June to December seems to be on a projection of $2 million. I told you I could be 95% accurate, so I'm not putting it that way, but I think that you're looking at in the range of reasonably about a $2 million. We're looking at trying to find a way to reduce costs by about $2 million.
That was, well, money was moved in December without authorization of the council.
And money wasn't paid out to other funds as well.
So,
So,
about 2 million.
All right, the next item that I noticed was on the budget sheet Sheila passed out for the general fund. The council approved its budget back in the fall, and we did not put any dollar amount for property tax cap loss, but yet $78,270 appears there, and that's confirmed with the DLGF if it's on this printout?
If it's on this printout.
Okay, well, we approved 0 for that. It's not needed. So I'm gonna make a motion that we cut the Fund 1000 County Council Department line item 20900 to 0.
What's that? Motion on the floor by Anton, second by Chuck. To cut the county council department, what was that?
Property tax cap loss.
And what's the amount?
$78,270.
once again, please.
$78,270.
And it's a safe cut because now in the normal budget process with the DLGF, there's already a property tax cap loss estimation. They've refined their methods over the years. Used to be 5 years ago, they didn't figure that in until a year later, and so we had put something in there to kind of account for it. But now that it's a part of the normal process, it's not really needed. So it's kind of a double, it's affecting us twice when it should only affect us once, if that kind of makes sense. So we don't need it in the budget.
All right, I want to restate the motion by Anton, and that's, take $78,270 out of the budget estimate for county council department property cap loss. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 7-0. You good, Madam Auditor?
The next item is, we already took action on this, so it might just be just a kind of a finish it up type of thing, Sheila. But if you recall, one of our earlier meetings, we did not need perf in the courthouse security budget. Those officers that are full-time are subject to the police officers' retirement fund, not perf. But we had budgeted $10,769 in that budget for no reason. So we already took a vote on that. Sheila, is that just something you can go ahead?
Part of tomorrow's.
Okay.
Up and moving it out.
We don't have total from them.
The total for that was $10,769.
Is Greg here? Is Greg here? I'm sorry. Okay, so in discussions with the highway budget, their 1135 fund, they wanted to zero out some of the salary amounts and stuff and just keep certain things. We can zero that out. It would be a reduction in budget. I haven't had a chance to tell Greg, I talked with State Board of Accounts this morning, I was in training down there. And they're afraid if you move it out and then we might turn around and put it back in the 2022 budgets, it would be better to leave it sit, just don't use it. It's not gonna change your amount because it would roll over. But to request it as a reduction, they might look at it as, well, if you don't need it this year, they might not let you have it next year. So it just don't spend it, you won't go in the red or you won't over budget. Is that, okay?
Yeah, and anything that's unspent in a fund like that is going to be kept into the cash balance of the fund, you know, so if you didn't spend all of it, then that's just gonna help your cash balance a little bit at that point. Back to the health insurance, so we definitely need that fixed right away. That's the number one priority on my list. You know, the council took great care back during budget hearings to specifically budget the correct amount in total from 12 different funds. And we've been doing it that way for years. And I didn't think it was a problem, but we need to make sure that that's just done the way it's supposed to. And I don't know, I did summarize that in an email the other day. And maybe there just needs to be a chart or some kind of cheat sheet or something like that just to help moving forward, to get a visual on it, because it is difficult. I mean, if you're just processing claims and you didn't know one way or the other, it can kind of be tough to figure. So anything that's been spent to date out of the general fund, I mean, really all of it shouldn't have been spent out of the general fund. And so I don't know if we need a motion to zero that and direct the auditor to fix it. I don't know if if there needs to be a motion for that,
It couldn't hurt.
just to account for it
It
maybe.
would be on record that way.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion that, any group health expenses that were paid to date from Fund 1000, the general fund, need to be reversed and taken from the correct funds and line items that they were originally designed to be spent from.
And bring those totals back to the council if you don't mind the friendly amendment.
Yeah, maybe a summary, yeah.
And I'll second
Yeah.
that.
Motion on the floor by Anton, seconded by Chuck. Anything that's been paid towards group health insurance from the general fund needs to be reversed, taken out of the correct fund, and summarized and brought back to the council.
Council, just roughly, give you an idea, about $233,000 would be a ballpark.
Thank you.
Commonly used number 233.
Okay, further discussion? We'll vote, all those in favor? 7-0.
And then, similar, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion on the liability insurance and workers' comp and property and casualty insurance, the same motion. It's gonna be a little different in that there is supposed to be money taken from the general fund for that purpose, but not all county expenses from the general fund. So the motion is gonna be for her to follow through and making sure the appropriate parts to that are taken from all the funds that property and casualty liability insurance are supposed to be paying for that.
With a summary brought back to the council.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Alright,
Jim, do you have a approximate number for that?
This won't be too helpful, it's in the range of $100,000, but that's.
The range, are we looking?
It's plus or minus, I would say it should be probably at least 100,000, but it's a little difficult to guess.
So motion on the floor by Anton, seconded by Chuck, to look at all other insurance-related accounts and ensure that they're being properly accounted and paid out of the correct fund and summarized and brought back to the council. Any further discussion? Call for a vote, all those in favor? 7-0.
Do you remember that some of those outside funds where they're coming from, EMS, I think in the past has been one that gets hit hard and needs in the highway. Health departments has always been more in workman's comp than liability. So even though we're adding some of we're taking from them,
Yeah.
those funds might still need to come back and get additional appropriations or be paid from somewhere else. Because they will be short probably by October or November, depending on the number.
Yeah, and that part I don't so much have a problem with, as long as the numbers are correct. And that's part of the problem why we're in this predicament right now, is that we have garbage in, garbage out on these numbers. I hate to say it that way, and it's very frustrating, because that's not what the council voted on. It's not what our decisions were based on. And it's very difficult, of course, for folks to understand that, and rightly so. But we gotta get a grip on the basics, and I think that alone will help us quite a bit, as it already has. Yes,
Didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, go
I
ahead,
just,
go ahead.
on the liability insurance, and you've got $158,000 that was appropriated, and $309,140.58 has been spent so far, is that correct?
Sounds like it.
Okay.
That sounds
Okay,
very close.
Those were the claims that came in that were due March the 8th. And
Okay.
again, those outside funds, those monies will be put back in there to reduce that.
but that is so far over budget. How did you guys come, since I wasn't part of the,
That's a good question, and
How did you come
it's
up
similar
with
to
that
group
number?
insurance. Highway, for instance, has 84,500 for liability insurance and 40,000 for workers' comp. So there's 120-some thousand there. I think health had a little bit in it. One of the health funds, EMS has some.
I guess my question was, how did you come up with that number? Was it just what you spent the year before, or was it what was budgeted before? I
We have
mean,
to look at the numbers to make sure. Usually it's been what it had been, but the trouble is some of it is variable, like workers' comp is gonna be based on actual payroll. There's also experience modification factors in there based on safety levels. There could be a reduction or an increase based on claims. It's gonna change every year. It's gonna be a tough number to pinpoint.
Right, but, what would be a good idea is look at the prior year and see what was actually spent. And then that would give you a little bit more of a basis on how to budget that.
Do we know, Sheila, if that amount was the premium for the year, essentially the renewal?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm not being here last year.
I'm sorry, and I'm gonna interrupt, but I have to speak to this, we're talking about our budget numbers here, I don't know how the other department heads are, but I'll tell you how I come up with mine. Workman's comp and that information, don't worry about it, we'll handle it up here. And so it was handled at the courthouse level, whatever that was, and now we as department heads, I don't know if that's how you deal with it, Chris, or not, please nodding in head yes. Now we're being told, oh, you got budget problems, and we took it from our elected officials. So ladies and gentlemen, we have to have a formula on our end, if you want us to balance our budgets, to come up with that information. Matt, Christine, we're all nodding our heads. This doesn't come from our level. So we have to have some help when it comes from whoever gets this information, whether it's the commission, whether it's the council, or these insurance people, to sit down and get the right numbers together, because Nick sat with me on 2 days, and we can get our numbers right, Jim, Sheila, if we've got the proper information. But we're not getting it.
Plus, it also helps for management of worker safety
Yeah.
and how that relates to the cost for your department. The other two is on the property side, the equipment and the inventory you have. You know, that too is something that's,
Well, we've actually worked on that. We have reduced what is sitting there and we don't need.
yeah.
We're moving it out. We do not keep it.
Well, I have talked with the insurance company as all these have been coming in, and it's Epic Insurance is who it's through, and they have never divided it out like that. It's always been, the staff says that it has been Patty in the formulas and the prior auditors. So again, I don't know how they figure them. I just know that from the state level, because you're not part of the county general fund, or those that are not part of the county general, again, we have to find out how many employees that's covering and what the exact amount is, then times that, how many employees that you have. And that's gonna change throughout the year because you've had people that's come and gone. Your insurance is gonna gain, every time there's a new employee, you're gonna gain 3 months of insurance because they don't get to file it for 90 days, those kinds of things. So there'll be a little extras here and there, but that's where at the end of the year that those amounts are gonna help maybe balance out the over amounts or the lesser that's there, because it's never been divided out before, it's never been given that. But the Epic people have assured me that they're going to sit down and the new funds or the new budgets and estimates that are given are gonna be divided like that. She's already working on it, because we've gotta have, again, it's not your guys' fault you don't have enough there, but it's your guys' fault if you have to come and ask for
Well,
money.
just looking at those numbers and hearing it now, it seems like we're going to be extremely over budget in those areas. Those numbers.
When does Epic expect to have that information?
Their bills are normally due in March for the first round of bills, but I believe we get liability 4 times a year and workman's comp, or it's opposite, one's twice a year and one, so we'll be getting new bills in, so, but I will check with her tomorrow and send out an email, so that we have those exact amounts.
Maybe that can be a to-do, well, I see the commissioners already.
I've already talked to John Harmony before budget hearing, sometime before July, we'll have all this stuff worked out.
Okay.
Discussions are already, and the health insurance as well,
Commissioners.
we've got that broken down, a dollar amount per employee.
Okay.
Jim's got that with him tonight, so if you wanna use that to break that down over those 12 different fund lines, that's gonna give you an exact number.
Yeah, I think the big thing is making sure that the appropriate costs for the actual department that the cost fits with. particularly non-general departments, because that's where we budgeted other money for that, highway, EMS, that kind of thing. Need to make sure that the accurate or fair share is figured.
Correct.
The second is the accountability and the whether it's the labeling, the reporting, whatever transmission between the insurance carrier and the auditor's office, that needs to be cleaned up, you know, to make everybody's lives easier. And, you know, maybe, I mean, the other thing too is maybe sometimes with, I know commercial insurance, there could be, if we pay it once a year instead of 4 times, there might be additional credit. I mean, 4 or 5% on hundreds of thousands of dollars can be good money.
That was on $300,000.
Yeah, so, you know, maybe there's some negotiation there. Yeah, but that's, you know, that's something that I think you all have to take kind of the lead on to.
We just negotiated this back in March, so we're set for the year, but it's something that we're negotiating with the budget year that's coming up. And I will tell you, there was a 50% increase in our liability insurance from 1921.
Okay.
Before we do another one, can you just for the numbers, if that's okay?
Yeah, I want you to do that. I also want to check on Chuck. You need a break or anything?
I can hang in for a few more minutes, I just kind of lean back in my back pocket.
Or to a good point.
The reason I say, council, the votes that you take, we talked just a little bit earlier about revenue stream. So, Greg, it's okay, I just want to do some numbers out of your budget, that's okay. So, you have some people like nodding their head and looking. 911, highway, building, EMS, they have revenue streams that come in. They're pretty consistent. And Greg, it's roughly about $129,000 comes in. The reason I just want to point out, improperly, in a way, the money for liability and the money for the group insurance was being taken out of general. There are in their line items, but just so you have an idea, in 1176, that is the highway superintendent's motor vehicle fund. It's in there, you set a budget, but he's looking at possibly an $84,500 hit. That was the estimated amount of his liability. That bill has been paid. So what I'm saying, the highway, 129 is about what's coming in. 84,500 is gonna have to be dedicated to the payment of that. In addition, on the group insurance at 3,900, the estimated amount for the 2021 budget for the highway was 150,000. As of May 7th, 0. So based on these two motions, two numbers are going to come your way. It could be as much as 84,000 on liability, and then it's gonna be your employee share from January 1st all the way up to May. So those two numbers are coming. It could be the same way for 911, it's gonna be for EMS, building, all of those that are self-funded. These number transfers are going to happen.
Now, do we know those numbers now? I know the vote took place tonight, but do we know those numbers now?
No, they just said, you know, on both the answer, if I understand correctly,
I
it says.
thought I understood that right, I
Yeah,
just wanted
no.
to make sure.
But the councilman has, but that's saying, look, doing the estimate, 84,000 could just be there. So probably somewhere in the range of about 100,000 is gonna be the transfer for the liability. The group insurance, probably a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's not like we're adding a new line item because we already have a line item, but there is gonna be some tweaking involved between the actual final number and what's been budgeted.
We get back here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
we've been working very diligently with Nick and Sheila. I think, most of everything we have at the highway department is simply clerical. It says there's red items, but they're really not. The council appropriated money, or made the appropriation, but it never got entered. So when Sheila looks at it, I don't have the money, it's all over here in this one pot. So we had authority, but it just didn't get put into the system. So when we come back to you, the first meeting in June, we've all sat down and worked out the mechanism with Sheila to get that information into the right lines.
So for highway, at our June meeting, we'll take whatever actions are needed to clear up some of that.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Well, I think, Jim, we've all spoke, I think we've been able to.
Right now, there's two good news. The highway department one, every one has a positive, and there's just some clerical that will ensure that can continue for the rest of the year.
I've been briefed weekly by Jim over the past couple of weeks, and I know that he's very happy, and we're very happy with what you guys have done there,
Thank you. We've taken the instruction, we just want to know, it's like the workman's comp, the insurance is a little frustrating when we don't make that budget. If we saw those original numbers, maybe we could be a little better at doing that. So if we work with my liaisons, Earl and Nick, I mean, everything's been extremely successful in doing that, so.
I'll even add to that. I think that's the perfect example on what we need to be doing. I think each of us as liaisons need to get with our departments and help them, find cuts and find where they can, I think that's our responsibility. And even if we had like a certain set date, we, come report back, what did we find? And, I think that's part of our job.
Well, they're here, daily. You can, anytime they wanna call you or you call them and sit down and go through this stuff, you can feel free to do so. And actually, that was some of the dialogue that Kelsey had with us tonight that I want to iron out is kind of making sure that these things are scrubbed with, the liaisons as well.
Well, and I personally think everybody needs to be in the same room at the same time, and get all the same information. All the office holders need to be here. It's fine to liaise, but I think when it comes down to cutting the budgets, I think everybody needs to be at a meeting where we're all talking about the same thing at the same time in the same room.
And as I told you, we'll get that ironed out before the end of the night.
Problem is, we can't make legitimate cuts because, I think we've got 36 officers between the county, the DNR, the state police, there's 3 prosecutors and 1 judge. And so I can't justify cutting a probation or cutting staff if we have officers or more prosecutors. So I need to know where they're gonna make a cut to see if I can then make a cut accordingly. So that's what's gonna be coming out there for us.
Kind of like a workflow thing and a
Absolutely.
procedural.
We're doing a jury trial now. Frankly, I know that we're not deemed essential in some people's minds, but I've got both prosecutors in there, and I've got both head public defenders in there, I've got officers in there, so we're also intricately related. And if we can't continue to see us as essential, and then if somebody is found guilty, they're gonna be going over to Donna's office. So if you ask me to cut a probation officer, the only way I can do that is if somebody else has a cut, because if we're gonna continue to have, we had 20 people, I think, arrested over the weekend. You're gonna have that many people, I can't make a cut for that.
Lori, we're not gonna leave here tonight until we get this thing somewhat of a road ahead on that.
Start at 8 AM tomorrow.
Great.
I'm gonna ask a really tough question, and I know y'all hate this. In the investigation, or whatever you've researched, the reason we're so low, or we are out of budget so far, based on your look from the last year or so, can you tell me solely that this is a numbers game, that we're either having problems with line items, or are we possibly talking about criminal aspect here?
Sure, I'll answer your question directly. And speaking with Crow and speaking with, and getting second opinions, there's been nothing to suggest at this point that there's any type of what we would call criminal behavior, intentional taking of the money. That's not showing up. What is showing is the massive over expenditure, the accounts, the funds that were moved. But as
Okay,
far as
so-
for a crime, if you're asking me like that, if there was $50 in an account, did someone take it, put it in their pocket, I don't say anything like that.
I'm not a moron.
I understand.
Okay, but now what I'm gonna say is there a list from the 2020 budget that these numbers are based on, that more expenditures went out without approval?
Well, 2 million did. That's the December 14th, 2 million did.
I've got you.
Sure.
Where's the list? I haven't seen it as of yet. I
Oh,
wanna know whose department it came from, what line item it came from, who authorized it, who signed the check, who signed the claim.
sure, I work on that. I mean, I don't have any problem doing that.
I don't.
I understand it, but that's not what was asked tonight. That was not what what
It
I'm saying
seems
is,
to me that would have been a logical thing
I
to
understand,
do
but
over the last 6 months.
the Crow report laid out, it's from 3 different areas. I didn't have the page even memorized, it's put out there, it was $2 million. It said quite clearly, there was no appropriation done by this county council. They were moved. That's why your report said $9 million in cash. It wasn't, it was 7 in there. There was, this is my memory, there was an EMS building, I believe it was lit, and I believe it was general. I believe those were the 3. It came out of what was called payroll benefits. There was what, if you looked in there, it appeared that there was 2 million. Go up there and pull up on your lap, 5,200, it will show right on there, negative over $2 million. That 2 million left, 5,200 payroll clearing, that's my understanding, went to those 3 locations. None of you voted for it.
But not a minute ago, you just told me that there were over expenditures.
There are.
Okay, who conducted those over expenditures? Who signed it? When did the checks go out?
So,
They went out every 2 weeks. There's over expenditures from January all the way through. There's $600,000 of expenditures with only $200,000 worth of appropriations, meaning the budget, using the word budget.
I get that.
Okay.
So what you're actually now telling me is that this is a numbers game and somewhere we didn't get $2 million.
No, you
Well,
have.
we see, this is the part that I don't think and again, I ain't the brightest guy on the planet. You can put me on a birthday cake and I'm sure probably gonna burn out. But, you know, the reality is this, is you're telling me we got $2 million that just disappeared off our budget.
It was spent.
It was spent, but we didn't have the money within the general fund.
It
You went from 9 to 7 million, you said
That
it
was
was
the cash
spent.
ledger, that was the cash ledger. It appears that you had in a cash amount approximately $2 million in 5,200 payroll benefits. That money went because there was, if my understanding is correct, and I could be wrong, but if this is my understanding, there was already a deficit in your general fund. That money went in there, so it showed in 2021, I believe a positive amount now in general of about $6,000. That wasn't the amount that was in there. It was all that money that had been spent in all of 2020, took from 5,200, paid it off, showed about a $6,000 balance in 2021. Same thing with the building. I believe the Chris was right, it was about 600,000. Does that sound in the ballpark? That money went and was paid.
But let's not forget the $910,000 from 2019 into 2020. You see where I'm going with
And-
this?
More than half of that is in this number, because we never cut it. Remember, we cut about half of it.
Yeah, but we were already negative going into 2020.
Right. Correct.
You see where I'm saying? That there's something is not being completely shown. At least I haven't seen it. That's all I'm saying.
We never got the money that we're supposed to get. That's,
From where? From the state? Answer that real quick.
I said, yes.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
a true statement? And we have evidence to that.
it was documented.
Yeah.
The money came in.
$911,000.
That was from the tax levy itself, right? Okay. So we had 910,000 last year, we didn't do anything about it.
Well, we
So we carried-
did some about it, but not all.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't, trust me, we didn't do that much, but we did less than 25%, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're carrying over $750,000 into this year, and we're already projected to be 2 million, which means 1.25, somehow we over budgeted.
under,
Based on whose numbers? The DLGF approved it, didn't they?
They approved what was sent out, in essence.
because of what they were seeing for Owen County as far as our numbers. Those numbers were not accurate.
Okay,
Is that fair to say?
You see, you're all coming in real close, follow closely. Follow closely, because we're getting there. If those numbers were not accurate that were presented to DLGF and the DLGF accepted them, somebody is at fault. Either the person who submitted those numbers or the DLGF for accepting faulty numbers and turning them back over to us. Do you see where I'm going with this? All right, I'm sorry, I'm done.
Yeah.
Let's get back on to getting some of this stuff paid
Okay,
off.
all right.
My apologies, Jim.
Council,
Probably take a break. So back to highway real quick. So highway, I'm trying to think through our to-do list here. By our June meeting, we'll have whatever internal steps are needed to make sure those numbers are correct.
That is correct. And they said,
No action tonight.
no. We couldn't have everything together, although all the paperwork is done. Sheila, am I correct in saying that? It was a group effort, by Jim, Sheila, Gary, Nick and I, Rachel at the office too.
And then, I didn't know if you want to take a break or if we want to tackle 911 real quick. I don't know your plan here.
well, you wanted to address a couple more
I've
things.
got three quick points and I'm done. I mean, if this takes, and I
Let's
can.
go through these
That
quick.
says the guy who started at 6 o'clock and says, I'm only gonna take 10 minutes. I'm having fun with you.
Okay.
No, it's been an hour, we've been here since 6, Jim.
Oh, yeah, that's right, that was.
Hey, hey, you got a sense of humor. Whoa.
Okay, so, borrowing off the last 3 points was just what the discussion was. Whatever the council wants as determination as far as how you want to meet with your department heads, your elected officials, though, that would be critical of them coming before you. Obviously, multiple ways. Liaison, one public meeting, do a mini budget, but it's definitely to the point where you're looking at all of their budgets again now from the June to December. Your only option is cutting. The only option that you have at that point is there's no real other revenues expected. You've got your June settlement, you've got real good projections, like for 911, I believe it's 24,000, it's 35,000, those are fixed amounts, that's projected. Not gonna be any more, maybe $200 of interest, it doesn't matter. So you do have enough numbers where you can work with all of your department heads. That would be at the pleasure of the council, of what mechanism you would want. I cannot do that. I would be totally like coming there and say, well, I think you can just cut $20 out of here, 50 there. That's not appropriate for me to do. I can give you these numbers. They know the departments, they know the personnel, they know the projections of what can be done. There have been offers by different departments. One, start off with the CASA. There's a way that rather than pay the CASA coordinator out of the general fund, that's about $22,000, that can be moved in there. Those are the type of suggestions that people have to present to you. American Rescue Plan, expecting $2 million. This is verbatim, it's a broken record. We'll always say this over and over and over right now, that money just needs to go in the account and then not touched. You cannot take the American Rescue Plan and put it directly in the general fund. You cannot.
So there's a reimbursable expense.
There are reimbursable, there's a number of things to look at, but the money one is not here yet, okay? It will be put in the account. One of the things to look at a little bit later would be, is there revenue reimbursements? And I know Anton's been very involved in that. If you take it base year, say 2018, look at it, and if there's less revenue, that could be a good source right there to recoup some revenue. But you can't just, it's just not automatic. So, but that's coming, it's looked at, the methodology of what that you want to use, your goals. I expect you look, please keep June 1st, June 14th, and June 30th as your 3 goals of how you want to tackle it.
So real quick, where are we at on the ARP money? We have a technical concern, right, with,
I went and talking with Jim, he feels that I need to go to the commissioners because the decision is the auditor that is gonna use to apply for it, or it's the county executive. So
We can do
Jim,
that on the June 7th. On the June 7th, we can iron that out on who you want to be the contact person and make that procedure.
but it has been said it either has to be Gary or myself that applies. And during that, again, you have to provide your name, your social security number, your driver's license number, a facial ID. I think that's a lot of stuff to be asking for from 2 individuals. we have a DUNS number, we have county federal ID numbers, why are they not using those?
That is
But
interesting.
so it's not that I haven't, I did the Sam's part and we have to go to the commissioners and for them to say who's gonna apply, Gary or I, and then that process will be done, so,
So it'll be soon.
yeah.
All right, so back to the budget scrubbing. All right, so the judges say that, well, we gotta work in tandem with the rest of the courts, basically, on this to make it work. You know, I don't know that there's enough hours in the evening for us to work through, together, all departments as one. But we could sub out big areas like the courts, or prosecutors, a prosecutor and defenders and such, to try to work, something like that. My question is, with the liaisons, are we going to gain a lot by having some meetings before the meetings to go through things, or do you guys think that sitting down, laying it on the table directly is the way to go?
I would like to meet like at the IGA on Friday morning, like 8 until noon, and use the screens where everybody can see what a budget is, and somebody can walk through what it is and where their needs are. Because then when I hear, maybe clerk's office say where they're at, then I know where I'm gonna be at. And then there's full transparency, so everybody knows what everybody's getting, and everybody's hearing the same thing. So that then if I make a cut, then the clerk knows what it's gonna do for them, and then it may come back up, just like the cost that we've suggested, taking that 22 grand out. And that's fine, but when you do that, you're not gonna get the county match, that match from the state, and so you're throwing away some money there in the same hand. So I think talking big picture of how that works affects all of you and all of us, so that's what I would recommend if we could do that. And I also know I'm gonna have to have Lynn Walters there, I don't want some of my staff to have to come in the evening, because they're not gonna get comp time or those kind of things, or they would, so if we're trying to get a budget, I just think do it very non.
Do you think we can do the whole county though?
I would think you could send an office head or a designated meeting, when you're talking $2 million, it's important enough for us to follow what could we do it.
Well, I'm just saying, is that enough time, to hit?
Well, it's a start.
I think it's a place to start to see
Yeah.
where we're at.
I like the idea, that's intriguing. We'd want it as efficient as possible, so I think there'd have to be some upfront, some kind of prep to make sure that
With
those
the
department
liaisons.
In
heads.
your budget, so everybody can have it, you
Yeah.
can print it off, or you can look it on your iPad or email and go to put it on the big screen, and each person can then have an agenda, when it's your time, and what do you need to.
Kind of like a workshop, a budget workshop, essentially.
Let's look at this, this is the budgets itself, right here that was presented to us, and it's got every line item on it. You wanna know what's missing? Current spent to date, can we get that on here? Because that will really help if everybody had a copy of this.
The last time that was
Current total
run,
spent to date.
that was run in April. You did an electronic report from Lao on.
For all the expenditures.
Yes.
And the percentages.
That report is
Okay.
what he's referring to.
Yeah.
But if that could be really just monthly at this point, that should be a regular thing. Because it'll change,
Mhm.
and your target is gonna be based roughly on where you're at the year, but
Well, yeah, but you can
But
still.
the dollars will be on there.
This is a simple spreadsheet, you can do year to date, it's a calculation, that's it.
yeah,
We
it'll,
have to, we have to have it by the 14th.
No, these are arbitrary dates I gave you, it's totally up to you, those are just
sooner the
three
better.
that seemed.
Yeah, the
Sooner
sooner
the
the
better.
better.
So let's talk dates. Guys, I'm the 4th to the 12th, I'm out of town.
What's our June meeting date?
14.
14th,
14th? Why couldn't we have a workshop before that meeting, say from 1 to 4? I mean, that allows the department heads to be here, they're all in this building. We come in 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2 to 5, 2 to 4, whatever, not too much beyond their working time, because I don't wanna take away their person.
I like that idea. I don't
the
know.
mornings would be better, Yeah, I'm not available during the daytime that day anyway, but
What about in the morning?
I think we should do it sooner than the 14th
I
because
agree.
this is gonna be a workshop related thing where we're talking numbers, we're not really taking votes or anything. But then we need our regular June meeting anyway to take action. If there's anything that comes about from the workshop, I'd hate for it to maybe not be finalized that afternoon and then have a meeting that evening and miss the chance.
How about, we got a lot of
If
department
that
heads
makes
here.
sense.
Yeah.
How about, what day is good for
June
you guys?
11th, like at 8 o'clock, that's Friday, do it 8 to noon, that's before your meeting on the 14th. Whatever information we gather on that time. then
We'd have a weekend and
Okay, I wouldn't be here, but that's not,
11th?
yeah, fourth to the 12th,
Okay, then do it.
What about Monday the 13th then?
That's
Our
a-
problems with the courts is that that's usually when the prosecutors are doing stuff, usually Fridays are when we go out.
I'm just trying to make sure the man's here, that's all.
well, look, I mean,
could we not do it the first week of, I mean,
He's gonna be gone.
no, next week, the 1st through the 4th of June is a Thursday to Friday. Is there any
I'm okay with
day in there?
it's up to
I'm sure
you.
The second would be best
June
for me.
2nd.
Fourth
Like
to
first or second would be,
Sorry, I heard first.
First is,
what about
You
the
know,
second?
old sucks.
second is a Wednesday.
Mhm.
Court schedule, I don't know, that's,
With the jury trial going on this week, I have packed next week. So
okay,
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday's out. I can do Fridays most time, because I can tell other counties, no. But
Can you do
our
Friday the
counties,
4th?
Fridays, if we look at a Monday maybe, but I know that's Thursday, but yeah.
4th?
I can do the 4th.
I'm free the 4th.
Can-
I'm supposed to be taking kid for
So everybody seemed real good with the 14th. Do we, I mean, is it really, I mean,
Fourth will
is there
work.
no reason that 14th wouldn't work? It would coincide with the meeting that night where we could take some action. Because we're not gonna take all action.
Just think it
One
needs
of
to
us
be
can
done earlier.
split that, as long as we're out by one. All of a sudden,
I mean, if everybody can do the 4th, I mean, that's all right.
14th, the morning of. if we wanna do
The
that.
morning would work for me.
All right.
All right, what about the morning of the 14th?
Sounds like a plan.
Fine.
You good? You guys good?
8 to noon?
8, let's just be here at 8 till whenever.
When you say meet here, does that mean here, or we get a?
I don't know, can you get it?
I think you're better off if you can get an IGA. I mean, I.
More space.
It's fun day.
I think you can put it up and see it on.
Who's the POC on that?
Andy, I can't do it that day.
You can't?
It's Flag Day.
Question, why couldn't we put it up on this?
Kidding.
Well, if we got more people, they have tables that you
It's
can write on,
fun
spread
day.
out your budget.
Yeah.
Fair enough, I just asked the
We need
question.
more room, yes.
I mean, this year,
8 to
people
12,
are gracious
right?
about offering that building to us, so
I can probably get OVCF as well if that were, it'd be better to be closer though. Let me see what we can get scheduled.
I just think we need a venue like that, tables, bathrooms, and.
Better. Whatever.
Let's be prepared to advertise for 8 o'clock on the 14th and, location to be determined at this time.
Thank you.
Sure.
And can I clear, are you talking about general fund, departments first and foremost? Do you have no need to talk to the appointed positions at this time, or you wanna get that out of the way first?
You know, I mean,
I'm
that's
just trying to clarify since we have other departments here besides general fund.
clearly, I'll be honest with you, I think that, if we can get everybody there we possibly can, that's what we do. So I'm saying countywide appointed.
I think it would be beneficial for them to have their budget and, expenditures to date, that way they can, before that date, that way they can kind of.
And I think, Jim, you've got some tools, as far as that goes as well with what you've scrubbed as
Yeah,
far as.
I'll still continue, like the things I've done.
All right. Okay, so Jim, you were in the middle of your last three.
That was it.
That was it?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That's it.
I think,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you. I think we need to give him a hand. He's working hard.
I feel like he is doing, I mean, he was hired as the county attorney, and I feel like he's doing a lot of financial stuff that we should be doing, is what I feel like. I mean, he's gone above and beyond and overworked, I'm sure.
And I have one more thing, just so we're all ready for that 14th, if maybe that Monday before the 7th, each department head sends out what their budget is, maybe get it to Sheila, and then that way it all goes out, so then we all have it, just like you guys have it all up there, so we can all look at it maybe a week before, so we can kind of figure out where everybody's at.
Sheila. All right, let's take 10 and be back at 7.
Real quick, I passed out the budgets to you guys, which you're holding. This is the budget, right. But remember, there were 3 cuts. So as you're looking at these, the EMS was cut, the 18,000 something, the Cume Bridge, I believe, was cut, the 72,000.
Now, the only budget sheet though that I had in the packet was the general fund anyway.
You didn't have this?
I didn't have any other printouts. I don't think we had any more of them.
Well, yeah, that's why we always did it that way, because
Here's a comment.
ours and don't. We always had to come back and take everything from.
It's so frustrating. It really aggravates the whole situation. I've got the fund 1,000 for all those departments, but I don't have a Cume Bridge, I don't have the. I mean, I've got that on. Yeah. Check your. Yeah, this is just all general fund. Civil defense, circuit court, auditor, assessor.
Yeah, thank you. Work on it, okay?
Court security.
Assessment, health.
There's no EMS, there's no Cume Bridge, that stuff's not on here in this packet. That's weird.
But I don't know. I don't know.
I have a number of papers on everything, I thought you guys tabled that.
They tabled, they did, it'll come back up possibly, but yeah.
No, they were supposed to have meetings or.
It's such a wonder that it gets stuck to somebody else.
Well, we gotta get through this. We just eliminated it.
Unless it was the last copy. I'll email.
Well, then we do need to trim it. That's the thing.
The only, vending machine now is.
Workshop's actually gonna be an judge's suggestion. Everybody's on the boat at that point, they're convinced. They have to follow. That's what we're gonna
It's easier to address
We're
everybody.
gonna have a big ask. But we have to follow. We get back with the
Is there anything else? Is there anything else?
We're gonna, yeah, we were able to transfer out the general fund. Oh, yeah, and that's why we'll try to switch things back. Take less out. Yeah, he's part of it.
I don't know, to be honest with you, I've kind of.
So what did you do?
I'm ready. Sorry. Numbers, percentages.
No, he missed me. He said I wasn't home, and I think I was. Oh, no, I didn't. But I talked to Roger and he said he thought he's not going to
Trying to figure out how to mute it.
Oh, sorry. That's all right. We're not talking about anybody.
She called me the other night.
Well, can you hit? So if the speaker down here at the bottom,
Push the horn,
over, yeah, up, over,
left. On the,
left, up,
right there,
up.
straight up.
Are you feeling better?
Can you click on that? But before we get going here, I'm so flawed. Listen, I, effective last month, called Peggy Robertson and thanked her and told her how much I appreciate her contributions on behalf of the council. And but at the beginning of the meeting, Peggy, just forgive me. I'm sorry. Listen, how many total years have you given to this county?
A little over 10.
A little over 10 years.
2 terms as recorder, and then of course, this time as clerk, so.
And has done just a phenomenal, and just been a bedrock for every organization that she's led in this county. And I want to give her an applause, and I'm sorry. Thank you so much for your service.
Peggy's been a very faithful attendee at AIC events and involved with the Recorders Association, the Clerks Association, and very meticulous with her budgets and her operations, so very much
Is there
appreciated.
anyone else retiring or quitting? Because I got one. All right, Anton, so a couple other cleanup items before we move off financial budget.
So E911, we've got some cleanup we've got to do there. Do we want to go ahead and get that
Yeah.
off the list? So just for clarification, because folks, when they see the report, they see 911 is negative on this report, but that doesn't mean 911 is insolvent or there's any issues. There are some very peculiar mechanisms as far as the sources of money and 2 different funds and how they're split out. And we've also had similar accounting related issues where things were taken out of things they shouldn't have and need to be fixed. So that's what I think Kathleen was able to do, is come up with some of the things that need to be moved and fixed to just be on track.
Yes. So, we're gonna do, Sheila, are we doing the appropriations at this meeting or?
No, that's the 14th.
Well, that's where a lot of these fixes are gonna come into place. There are appropriations that I submitted at the beginning of May that were not in time to get in for the May meeting. So when you see those, one of them we're not going to be dealing with because Sheila is getting some feedback from the state. So if you look at the dispatch center project line item that shows it's negative 17,177.39, that's a possible error from the state, and they're digging into that and they're trying to figure that out. So that might not actually be coming out of my budget for me to have to fix. She can talk about it.
The state is just saying that they think that that was entered prior to the December 30th, 31st, and it was just entered because if you look at the rest of her appropriations in there, there's nowhere in there that there's any more that equals that 17,177. But State Board of Accounts is telling me I can't go in and delete it out of there. It'll be corrected when they come in to do the audit. So not to do an additional appropriation for it until we see
So what was the dollar amount?
17,177.39.
39.
17,077?
No, 17,177.39.
That'll possibly be,
So that was gonna come out of my cash funds from my 1235. But possibly not have to pay that, or do that transaction.
so in a perfect world, in a good news situation.
I have the money to cover it.
Okay.
So I'm, like several other departments, there are funds that, went negative from 2020 into 2021. So those are the appropriations that I'm gonna be submitting at the next meeting. The regular wages right now is showing negative 32,379.40. That is combination of not having a line item for holiday pay. And then a couple of appointed pays came out of the regular pay line item, that kind of stuff. Things that were just never fixed. They were brought to the attention, but anyway, they were just never, it was never moved around and fixed. So again, that money is gonna be coming from my available cash balance. I also, my FICA from last year was negative $18,025.67. So that'll come from my 1235. Again, I don't know exactly why that was negative $1,800, but,
So it's 1,800, not 18,000.
yeah.
Okay.
Did I say 18,000?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 1,800, there you go. Did not
That's
have a
great.
heart attack right now. $1,800, so I'm not sure how we were short that. And then the overtime wages of the $6,200. Again, all of these will be coming from my cash balance.
So moving forward, like currently,
Currently,
are we,
I,
is the processing correct? I mean, are things being taken from the correct line items and?
things are now
Okay.
being taken from the correct line items. So at the last meeting, you approved the 2 appropriations to do, I think it was, I have it right here. $1,400 that was in my 1222 is unappropriated, and the $9,951.94. Where that came out of group insurance out of 1222, however, we've always taken it from Fund 1235. It was just, the same thing happened in 2020 as well. It started being taken from the 1222 when it should have come from the other fund, and then just getting that stuff reversed. So those will end up clearing themselves out. So to date, without those processes being done, because I know Sheila said they're gonna be working on that, my 1222 with claims and everything that have not been paid, because that's what I keep track of, is everything that I have to pay, not necessarily what has been paid, is gonna be $32,984.94. However, in my 1235 fund, I have $248,373.49. So
Are you transferring?
there will be a transfer. So typically, what I have been told last year, since this is only my second year in this position, I was told that funds can run negative till the end of the year, then we do the big transfer from 1235 to 1222 to then get that into the positive, so everything's all shored up and everything's positive by the end of the year. Talking to Jim a little bit, we shouldn't go into it with that mentality, we should make sure that we keep that as positive as much as possible. So it comes right around to my 1222, everything that comes out of that line item that, and the revenue that comes in, we're usually right around $160,000 overspent until we do that transaction to do the transfer from 1235 to 1222. But in October, we typically get an additional disbursement from the state 911 funds from their hold harmless. And that could be anywhere from 24,000, last year we got 64,000. So I'm not gonna do the full 160, at the June meeting, I'm only gonna do about 100,000. And then when we come to budgets, I'm moving things around to where we're not gonna have to do this transfer back and forth. So.
Yeah, we wanna kind of make it easier as far as the operational part of it, so, okay.
So, yeah, that I have kind of laid out in my spreadsheet that I keep. And that's what I'll be submitting at budget time, are those changes of the specific line items coming from different funds. So, yeah.
So regarding this fund, it's all lined up, there's no action needs to be taken.
No, it'll be at the June meeting is when the appropriations and stuff will actually take place. So, and then, once those are completed, we'll be good.
You need anything else, Sheila?
She's already given me the forms and everything.
Yeah, I might have to do one other just after October, depending on how much that hold harmless disbursement is from the state. Because it's never guaranteed we're gonna get it, we never know how much it's going to be. So, like I said, last year I got 64,000, the year before that it was 19 to 24,000 is kind of what it's been. So it just, once we get that, then I'll see definitely how short the 1222 is after doing the 100,000 at the June meeting, and then we'll do an additional at the end of the year if we need to.
Are you done with your executive course?
Yes,
Congratulations.
finished that last week, it was an amazing class, so,
Good for you.
yeah, it was
Got
very
real
good.
smart, huh?
Do what?
You got real smart.
I got real smart. A lot to cram in a week, but it was
Congratulations.
amazing. Thank you.
All right, Anton, what's your?
Building department,
All right, let's go ahead.
I'm sorry, are we waiting for someone?
yeah, building department, do you wanna go ahead and talk about?
We just wanna talk about the surveyor.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if we could go ahead and retool the numbers, because we kinda know where they need to be for now, we might as well mark it off our list, if you're ready for that.
Well, that's fine, we talked to Bill in our meeting and agreed to go ahead and move forward with that. Was it 10% or was it
20%.
I don't have all those notes in front of me, Anton, so.
Yeah, 20% would be 81, 23 and 2 cents out of his perpetuation fund. 20%.
8,100.
81,
23.
23 and 2 cents.
Susan, thanks for working with Bill on this.
Okay, so there's a couple of steps though that we need to talk about. I think what Suzanne had done and worked on here is that along with the surveyor, allowing use of the perpetuation fund to cover 20% of the salary for the position she's in. What that does is it takes away that cost. And that increases the capacity available in her non-levied budget to be used for other expenses. So then she looked at some of the expenses that are on the general fund. See where I'm going with this? And she recommends that those expenses be moved over to the non-general part of her budget. She feels that with the cash balance and what's left in the year and all that, that's something they can support. So do you want to go over some of those numbers for us, or do you?
Basically, it would be taking whatever the appropriations were for the general fund and putting it all back, which is about $25,000.
25,000 is a change.
Yeah.
Back into my fee-based budget. And as of right now, we've taken it about just this year, just as of today, $31,000.
Is what you've taken in this year?
Right, yeah.
Good.
And
So-
that is, BZA planning, that's also just, I think it's 20-some thousand just in building permits, almost 30,000 in building permits alone.
Good.
But we're only specifically talking about 8123 that we're able to remove from that.
Well, so.
Yeah, well, that is part of it, plus move back in what was in the general budget, back into the fund as well. So everything's just coming out of the fee fund.
Yeah, it's supporting itself where it doesn't need help from general fund. And if y'all remember the long period of time it took us to get this accomplished, we probably made about $100,000 swing. With the elimination of the employee, with the additional revenue coming into this department, has been amazing.
Good.
She's doing a good job
He's
too.
doing a great job.
So with
Yes.
the surveyor is the first step here, and if that's something that we're going to allow, we want to make sure that that's a part of our motion. What that does is it takes the non-general fund budget, and is that retroactive for 2020?
He didn't know if I don't know if the attorney would know if
That's something that Jim's gonna have to look
And
into.
I would ask you, yes, it would be okay I think it might be better to do this in the form of an actual written resolution where we could have affidavits
Okay.
from the surveyor and also the building, much like the recorder's perpetuation fund, that could be ready for the 14th meeting.
Well, then let's do that. Let's put that on our June to-do list. Some kind of affidavit agreement between the building department commissioners and the surveyor. Jim will draw that up. We should have the numbers printed out somewhere for a report that we can present.
I've got your actual general, fund numbers that we're gonna give you back, it's $25,855.
Now, the only thing that I had concerns with that is that we already spent some from the inspector,
Right,
so we can't move.
all of it.
Yeah, so
Right.
we need to figure out the exact,
Well, and that's, see,
The 2022, that's definitely a number,
yeah,
all of it.
and they hadn't been taking his pay out of the right line. So it's coming out of a different line item, so that would have to be
course it
readjusted to show where it's actually
so maybe we need to fix that first
Yes.
and then come up with, okay,
Yes,
okay.
I mean, I've been keeping a balance, it was the 12,000, I had sent you 12,000.
Yeah, your spreadsheet seemed to be the most accurate.
Yeah, I've been keeping track of all my expenses so that I knew exactly how much had been appropriated and came out.
So if 12 is the number, for instance, we had 17, so there's gonna be about 5,000 right there we can't move over, if that makes sense. And so whatever the final numbers end up needing to be after the corrections are done, and
Yeah.
then we can then maybe at our June meeting, take the action.
Yeah, I estimated it would be about $21,012.
Okay, this year, that's good, that's good.
And that's also getting rid of the cell phone. I had an appropriation for a cell phone, and we got rid of that. I think that's it.
Yeah, there were some things that you recommended kind of trimming anyway, so.
The cell phone was gotten rid of about March, so.
And obviously, budget hearings, we can pinpoint things a lot better, obviously, this cuts for that.
The sheriff couldn't be here tonight, and I know I talked with him a little bit, and he already mentioned some things at our last meeting, if you recall, about jail housing and maintenance, and there were a lot of different things. He does plan on having kind of a proposal for us at our June meeting that outlines the different areas that he is able to cut, trim, move, and reposition. And, some of it does add up quite a bit, and I think that too will be pretty helpful to our bottom line. But in his absence, I don't think there's much more to discuss on that part, so.
How many more items on your list?
I think that's all, isn't it?
The only other thing that I had is on the recorder. I know that with the memo and that, it kind of had an all or none flavor to it as far as moving things, but I kind of recommend that there be in more of a discussion with the recorder as far as partial. I mean, I don't know if it is really fair necessarily or a wise financial idea to take all of general fund expenses and moving it to perpetuation, for example, because there are important projects that she does have planned that need to be paid for. But, if we're talking a split, where 20% of the cost of the full-time position, for example, is paid for out of perpetuation, and the other 80 is on the general, that's good too. I mean, so I don't know if that's been talked about or how far down the path that discussion's gone.
At the meeting that is scheduled, that would make it
Okay.
a topic. And legally, yes, it can be anywhere from 0 to all, any percent.
I just didn't want her to think, oh, it's all and that's not gonna work, so it's done. I think there is an in-between perhaps, and so I just wanna make sure that that's brought up.
This time I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the 2021 grant cycle. This would allow a total of $36,000 to go towards the deficit.
Okay, the 2021 cycle, I get it for 2022, but we actually paid those out in January. So for this year,
2022, maybe my mind's not.
all right, so.
Oh, give me a break, folks.
So that's correct then for the 21 budget, that's already been spent, so it's a 0.
Right.
Okay, so 22 is what you're talking about,
Yes.
but we're gonna have hearings anyway, and I'm not sure. We'd have to act on
We
it
have a motion on
tomorrow.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor by Chuck, seconded by Nick. So, discussion. The motion was to suspend the 2022 county grant cycle. You know, I guess the totally understand, totally, we're not to budget hearings yet, but certainly it's something that we would consider.
Well, here's the problem. In 2019, we were $910,000 into the deficit. What happened in 2020 and 2021? We're now at $2 million. So if we don't start looking down the road, folks, there's no way. If we couldn't do 910 at the end of 2020, which we all had the confidence that something was, we were going to have it taken care of, then in my opinion, we're not gonna make $2 million by the end of this year. I don't care how you slice it. So we're gonna have to start taking steps, and one of those steps in leadership is that you do things in advance. So in my opinion, we're gonna carry this over till 2022. I doubt, anybody really feel confident that we're gonna make it? Anybody, raise your hands. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I think as leadership, we should probably show that.
I would like to say, the point Chuck made is very good. I also know though that there's people there that we help, even though I second his motion, there's people there that we help, that I don't know where they're gonna come up with their funds. This is really a tough time for us, and yes, it's a tough decision we're gonna make. If we got towards budget time and we saw things in a little different light, it might be there that we could say, wait a minute, we might not have to do that or do it that much. But I really think it is something to talk about because it is $36,000.
I appreciate that, but Nick, we're gonna have departments that are going to be doing more than $36,000. So I can understand the community, but remember also, we've added in a public safety tax for the jail project. We added less than 2 years ago, the wheel tax. We added in a increase within the last 3 years into the fuel road tax. So we're asking them as much to put out as well. And the problem is, we're gonna have to cut everywhere. And that means we have to cut there. I'm sorry, it's leadership.
Chuck, I absolutely understand your feelings. There's a motion on the floor by you, seconded by Nick. The only caveat that I've got is, as we finalize these numbers for this year and move into budget hearings, if it's not more appropriate that we handle it during budget hearings, because I think there's a lot of things that we can look down the road on for fiscal year 22 even now, if we wanted to tonight, but I'm not so sure, it's appropriate at this juncture as we reconcile all this stuff. So.
I don't think it would surprise anyone. I mean, they all know the shape that the county's in, so I don't think it would be a shock to them if they didn't receive the grant next year. Not saying that they might get more the next time, right?
So, and with the word suspend, if something changed during budget hearings, then we could also look at possibly reinstating it if the council did vote.
Well, and that's my point. My point is, we need to show that we're prepared to take all actions necessary. We already know, and there's nobody in here who can give me an ounce of confidence that we're not going to carry some of this into 2022.
You're right. All right, any further discussion?
I agree with your point, Andy, that, you know, we're talking a 22 budget year discussion or decision here, and we're gonna have a whole set of hearings on this. This is not something that would take effect till January 1st anyway. It is from the edit fund, which is not necessarily a direct issue fund at the moment. I think that it's definitely something that should be on the table that needs discussion, and it should be something that's looked at and not just written off or overlooked as not touchable. I think it's fair game like anything else in the budget, but it is a 22 issue, not a 21 issue, and I just think it's a little premature to act on it tonight.
Sound like you're confident we're not gonna carry this to 2022. I just wanna know where you stand on that.
I would agree that it would, you know, when we looked at our budget reorganization last year with that checkbox mistake, we were also banking on future years. Then COVID hit and some other things as well. It's very difficult to predict, but if it takes 2-3 budget years to help with revenue growth and other things, then it's gonna have to take 2 to 3 years. I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
Oh, I agree, that's what I'm saying.
All your approval?
Do I?
Do you have anything?
No, I agree with Chuck, because I think we need to, I mean, we're gonna have a lot of hard decisions, and we're gonna have to make a lot of cuts. And even like the hiring freeze, and we're gonna make it a lot of unpopular decisions, but I think it has to be done.
I don't think it's the appropriate time right now, but that's just my opinion.
Either, and again, we don't have to do this tonight. I'm not gonna create an argument. I'll withdraw the motion if there's a consensus to do it. However, this sets leadership and where we're gonna go with that 2022 budget. What's the difference? This is now May. August is less than 6 weeks away from our budget hearings. Whether we decide tonight to do it or that we decide to do it in August, I'm asking you to consider it, that we show leadership, show that we're willing to make the tough decisions, even if we're doing it now.
You know, Chuck,
Because we know we're gonna carry it in 2022.
I think we might even consider withdrawing it tonight, not because I don't agree with you. But do you think there's enough in this special meeting agenda to have a discussion on the 2022 budget?
No, because it's specifically listed
For 2021.
2021.
Alright, here's what I'll do. I'll withdraw the motion. Alright? But I'm telling you right now, we are going to carry I'm gonna tell you right now, based on these numbers, we are gonna carry a minimum of $1.1 million into 2022. And I am confident. Anybody in this room wanna argue with me on that?
Hey Chuck,
And then we can
let me
do
tell
it
you
then,
something.
right?
I don't know of anybody up here that is at odds with your motion. Because it's a special
No,
meeting.
there's no discussion.
No, but my thing is administrative in nature. Because it's a special meeting, it has to be listed within the confines of the agenda.
I don't see any listen for anything we discussed other than 2022 budget. How's that for a click? Financial budget issues. I didn't see any subsequent letters in here. So as far as I'm concerned, you know,
Well, it's a 2020.
it is a budget
It's a
issue
2022.
because you're gonna carry it over.
Hey, sir, listen, I just want to
No,
want to
you're right.
clarify
It's
my
procedural. I
stance
went
here.
through it. We can
It's
go on.
2021
Expect me to raise
financial
the same
budget
motion
issues.
in August.
In the next regular meeting, we can add it as an agenda item, or we can wait till the budget hearings. I'll get in touch with you before then. Did you have anything else, sir? Okay. All right. Any other alibis on 2021 budget status? A good discussion. Moving along, item number 5, employee exception requests. I have 2 here. We have one from the highway department, one from the auditor. Greg reached out this past month to me and wanted to talk about his part-time for the summer help.
We have all this already.
Look, I didn't know whether some that didn't get their emails, whatever. I sent that.
We got everything. I'm just letting you know.
Thank you.
It's not like
Mr.
I'm trying to-
Melton?
I worry about not getting it.
Mr. Melton, you can have the floor.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It appears that everybody got everything but email, that I sent out in regard to the, hiring freeze exemption. As you all know, when I was told to cut my budget, I did, and I forewent 7 part-time employees for the summer. So going into this year, down 7. I've left this position open, intended to leave this position open because of the hiring freeze. But one of my old part-time employees that has a commercial driver's license was willing to work for laborer's wage. This position's been open 6 weeks now. I'm asking you to allow me to hire that individual as a laborer for 43 days over the summer. He's a school bus driver. It's a very minimal time, and then if weather fit, 5 days during fall break. Otherwise, that position would be left vacant in regard to the freeze. That being said, would be no benefits. I would like it to be a seasonal employee and working 40 hours, but if the council deems fit for me to hire this individual, I would entertain part-time also at the reduced hours. What that would allow me to do is right now, with the projects that we have going on, I am having a tough time having enough people to fill potholes. With the CDL driver, that would allow me to keep a 3rd injection hole patching machine on the road all the time.
So when we had a part-time truck driver classification prior.
We did.
And so we would need to essentially vacate or suspend the full-time laborer position that's vacant, is that correct?
Yes.
And then transfer the money to the part-time truck driver
That would be correct.
category. That position would pay $12.72 an hour, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Times whatever hours you would need. And so you're talking 43 days,
Yes.
and that would be at 48 hours a day?
Good. 8 hours a day.
A day.
So 43 times 8
Yes.
would be the total hours.
And then there would be a possibility for the fall break 5 days. But
Okay, so
I'll take anything that I can get.
48 times 8 would equal 384 hours. I'm just coming up with the total dollars here we would need. Just so we have the math here. So the cost of doing this would be $4,884.
Close.
Talk about good. And then we would have a FICA expense only, no perf, since it wouldn't be full-time, considered full-time. It'd be $374 for that part. And so to do that, you would essentially vacate the full-time laborer position that's been vacant for the balance of the year.
Yes.
We've already spent some money because there had been someone kind of there,
I've had,
but not, there wouldn't
this
be.
has been a really
yeah.
tough time, ladies and gentlemen, to keep anybody employed, they're in and out. I've had I've saved several dollars just by people not staying long enough to get benefits. They seem to roll in and out, and then, as I had said at the commissioners meeting, this is the first time, since I've been at the highway department, I have no applications at all. None. This gentleman just asked if I had anything.
So,
I'm sorry, how much if we vacate that, how much leaves that available for us?
it'd be more than enough.
Well, in
Yeah.
that case, I'd like to make a motion, we go ahead and vacate that position for only the rest of this year, and that he be authorized to hire the full-time position for the summer with no benefits, to include possible 5 days fall break.
340, 84 hours.
Yes,
Part-time truck driver.
thank you, yes.
Second.
I second.
Oh.
Who did it?
Anton got you, so motion by Chuck, second by Anton, 384 hours allocated to this position for this year only.
And Jim, being a seasonal, even though it is gonna be full 8-hour days, the length of time is not an issue as far as activation of benefits or anything like that.
About the 43.
Okay.
You good, Madam Auditor? All right, further discussion?
I think this is a very good deal for the fact that we've got the whole patcher, why Tennessee was sitting there, and we got the whole.
I can point to a few.
I think it's a great deal.
All right, I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, Sheila.
Okay, I sent out an email to everybody that I had an employee quit for medical reasons. So now I have that position open as well. As I proposed, because we're still trying to figure out something on payroll, whether it's Paycor or somebody else, that's still there. So I would like to combine the two positions, that would be the front counter and the payroll person into one. That would, I already have the money in that full-time position, I just would need the job descriptions, and that still leaves the other full-time position for whatever is decided with Paycor or whoever. So we wouldn't, I would still be giving up the one position.
So you lost another individual.
She complete bed rest.
Really?
Could be the stress level.
No, she's only been there a few, she's.
All right, so, currently then, you have yourself, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 full-time individuals. You did have 5, but that person is this individual that left. So you're wanting to remain at 5.
5 of 6.
Not the way I'm
Well,
understanding
5 of 5, because we already vacated due to the payroll thing, that still kind of stays the way it was. Okay.
I got you, Chuck, my bad.
Question is the two funds cover the cost of the 29,000?
It's already been budgeted.
It's already budgeted.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And there's enough in those.
Yeah.
Yes. And there'll be a little extra in that that'll stay in the county general as well, just.
Do we require the combined counterperson payroll deputy description from the wage committee first, or can we make that part of the stipulation?
So, yeah, that's a good point. Nothing committee-wise, but Jim, on our job description, we probably need some kind of a
Yes, this would be a
update.
change of the position, so that there would have to be a new job description.
Yeah, but we have to have that prior then to authorizing this, Jim. Or could I make it a part of the motion?
I mean,
Cause like if we hire, they're gonna need to sign off on the job description.
Well, then we're gonna need the job description first, then, all right?
I'm not gonna have anybody before June 14th. If you
Oh.
have it.
You can make it part of the motion.
It could be contingent on a job description. I mean, it should
Make a
be.
motion that we go ahead and authorize the combination of the county person and payroll deputy to a full-time single deputy handling those two positions on the contingency that we have the job description completed at the time the employee is ready to hire on and sign.
I second that.
Motion on the floor by Chuck, seconded by Nick. The auditor be allowed to hire an employee contingent on the approval of new job description. Further discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor? 7-0. All right, job classifications.
And Chris thought he had sent in the employee request. Can he go ahead and be heard and get one filled out? Do you know exactly which one it is?
Step on up, Chris.
I've worked my shifts plus picked up 3 additional shifts this week, so somewhere along the line, I thought I'd send it to Sheila, but I hadn't. I just went to check my emails, I did not send it. So if you guys do want to consider it, I fully understand.
Motion to authorize consideration of the EMS Chris Director request.
I second.
Motion on the floor by Chuck, seconded by Nick.
Okay, so for clarification here, this is an EMT position, a full-time position that's vacant? Or is it a paramedic?
I just want to be able to hire some part-time people right now.
Oh, just part-time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've got one that's leaving, yeah.
The clarification is that we allow him to bring it to us at this time. I'm not actually.
Oh, you're just doing a procedural vote?
I'm doing a
Oh, okay.
procedural vote.
Okay.
Or a procedural motion that he be heard, and I believe I made that.
I have a motion on the floor by Chuck, seconded by Nick, that Chris be allowed to be heard regarding a employee exemption request. Now, hear any further discussion? Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor? Looks like 7-0 to me.
Well, understand, I'm
You're not
trying to
gonna
do this as fair as possible. Hiring freeze situation.
It's fine.
We're gonna do it, we're open transparent.
Now,
As I've talked to you guys before, not only hiring EMS personnel because of the, becoming very difficult because of the shortage in EMS that we're having right now. I think I've told you guys before that we had a mass exodus of people, not necessarily us, but the EMS in general. Whenever they opened up, the paramedics could take a short course and transfer over to shore up to RNs.
Nursing.
And we have a lot of, and in fact, what we're seeing now is people are taking paramedic courses, as soon as they get out of the paramedic course, going right into a RN transfer course. It's saving them money, I guess, becoming, not going through college to get the RN. So anyway, that's creating a shortage with us, and some of the things that I've told you guys before is that I won't hire someone just because they have an EMT certification. They've got to be quality people, and that's making things really difficult. So right now I've had one full-time and 3 part-time people leave because they graduated college. One has become a nurse and now is moving up to Fort Wayne. I've got another one that went to school for, I don't know what it was. It's some sort of epidemiology, and of course COVID's fitting right into his deal right now. So he got a job. He's moving to Indy. So anyway, I'm losing 4 people right now. That's why I had to pick up 3 shifts last week. I need to be able to hire some part-time people, start filling these shifts. It's going to be a savings to my budget overall,
And the reason is because, right now, my full-time people are picking up all the shifts that they feel comfortable with picking up. And I'm paying them time and a half. My full-time people make more money hourly than my part-time anyway. Plus now I'm paying them time and a half to pick up shifts. If I can hire some part-time people, I can cut out that overtime and pay a lesser hourly wage. So it's going to be a big money savings unless you consider the hours that I'm putting in, and that's not going to continue.
These are already positions you have slotted, is that not correct? These are already in the budget, is that not correct? And you need how many?
I'd like to be able to I'd like to be able to hire 5 or 6 part-timers. I don't necessarily have a cap on part-time or full-time.
Right.
They don't make any money unless someone takes off, and then we take our part-time people and fill that shift where a full-time person was at.
Can I ask a question? How many do you think you're going to get before the next meeting?
3.
Fine, I would like to make a motion that we authorize Chris Munster, Director of the EMS, 3 part-time hirings and exemptions from the hiring freeze. I wish I could have made that a little more technical, but I can't right now.
I'll second that.
Motion by Chuck, seconded by Nick. So my question is 3 optimal, or you said you worked 3 shifts last week? And so my thing is it optimal? Where does that bring you up to as far as full strength or not full strength?
It's not full strength. Right now, I don't have any more applications in that.
Some that, by the way.
Let me just tell you why I said 3. He told me he could get 3 people in 2 weeks. If he needs more, that means he can come back and get another exemption. Does that make sense? That is a fair way, I believe, to handle it with the other departments as well. Instead of.
No, I was just asking.
No.
Sorry.
And again, I would like to point out, this is why, when we made this free, is why I wanted to exclude public safety.
Okay, I've got his form here. You guys can, does anybody want to see it?
Well, the form has 2 part-time and 2 full-time.
I just put in there full-time EMTs.
Yeah.
Part-time EMTs, full-time
EMT, a part-time
paramedic.
EMT, and then one of each.
What kind of fraudulent paperwork are you bringing up?
Yeah.
You trying to slip something under?
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
You're just not getting enough risk.
Right now, I was just opening up on this, hoping that it would come in before, and like I say, I failed to send it.
So
That I would just be able to fill these positions as they come. But right now, like I say, I've only got applications for part-time anyway.
Right?
3 part-time.
That's what my motion
That's your
was,
motion.
part-time.
Yeah, and I think now the form does match that, so.
So,
And then if you need more, obviously you can come June 14th.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call for both then, unless there's anything.
I think Nick had seconded that.
Yes.
Okay.
Call for a vote. All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you all. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Chris, now go home and go to bed, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, go back.
Okay, we're done with all that then. Job classifications. You're going to have to refresh my memory on job classifications.
I'm not sure what that
It
is.
might have been one of the things we put in there after you told me you were putting some things in there to make sure we were covering some different stuff, but
No action.
moving along.
No action.
Paycor, payroll, allow status. Bottom line is that the commissioner meeting, effective a week and a half ago, commissioner sought to delay, any action regarding Paycor till 1 November 2021.
Unless it's before then, Jim's obviously tied up with all of this, so he's gonna send out some letters and he's working on some stuff, but obviously he's dealing with other issues right
Okay. Any other updates regarding that?
Other than we all agree, I've talked to just about every one of you, other than Chuck, I haven't had a chance to get to him. Time management is of huge importance to us. We all know that. Some kind of HR program is important to us. That's, you know, we have $500,000 that we owe employees out here in benefits. We gotta do something about it. So, kind of where we're at.
Okay.
Do we, in light of the financial discussion we had earlier, should we take some kind of emergency action on comp time?
We are.
Okay,
I've already taken care of that. It'll be at our 7th meeting.
I'm just thinking, you know,
We're gonna do
kind of like a freeze.
We're gonna do comp freeze,
Okay.
yes.
Well, we'll just await your proposal then, okay.
You are, that is correct, Jim. We have it on the 7th.
We must be telepathic.
All right.
No, it's just good minds think alike, right?
All right, so, public department heads, other folks in the room, you got anything of us? Council members, you got anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Hold on one second. You're like that kid in class.
You asked.
Commissioners, you got anything? Bob?
No.
Gary? You got anything?
I'm good.
All right. Madam Auditor?
Thank you, Mark.
Jim?
Do adjourn.
To go, motion to adjourn. Scott, thanks for suffering through